The morning sun gently bathed the small town in its soft light. Two friends were joyfully running around in the garden. Tomas, the brown-haired dog with loyal eyes, and Keen, who was only 8 years old and whose eyes held pure curiosity and love. Their story was beyond that of an ordinary child and an ordinary dog. It was a story of true friendship, trust, and unconditional love. Tomas had come to this house years ago. As a puppy, he had been placed in an old shed in the garden and spent his first night gazing at the stars shining in the sky. That night he was slightly frightened, trying to get used to his new life. But the next morning, when he saw the joy in little Keen's eyes as he appeared at the garden gate, he realized that his life was no longer just his own, but also that of his new friend. Keen would always stop by Tomas before school in the mornings and hug him tightly. As his tiny hands stroked the dog's furry head, Tomas's tail would wag with happiness, almost like a metronome. The two understood each other without words. A glance, a smile, or a bark was enough to convey the bond between them. The garden was their kingdom. In spring, when the flowers bloomed, Keen and Tomas would race each other on the grass and play hide-and-seek in the shade of the trees. Even though Tomas was always a fast runner, he would slow down so Keen wouldn't be upset when he didn't win. Sometimes when the child hid, Tomas wouldn't find him right away with his nose, but would wander around as if wanting to prolong the game. At home, the atmosphere was completely different. In the evening, when Keen finished his homework and read books in his room, Tomas would lie down quietly in front of the door. His presence gave the child confidence and peace. On stormy nights, when the sky thundered, Keen would curl up fearfully in his bed under the blanket, and Tomas would immediately come to his side, lay his head on the edge of the bed and wait silently. At that moment, Keen's heart would calm down and his fear would subside, because he knew that if Tomas was by his side, nothing could harm him. Sometimes there would be long silences in the garden. When Keen had a bad day at school, he would go to Tomas to share his sadness, which he couldn't express in words. They would sit together in the garden, and as a few tears rolled down the child's cheeks, Tomas would rest his nose in his palm. This small gesture said much more than, "I'm here, I understand you." Keen felt this deeply. As time passed, their friendship grew stronger. Tomas witnessed Keen's first bike ride. When the child lost his balance while pedaling, the dog would run right beside him and be the first to reach him if he fell. On autumn days, they would jump into piles of leaves together, rolling around laughing. When winter came, they would play snowballs in the yard, Tomas happily trying to catch the snow thrown into the air. Keen's family would sometimes say, "Tomas is almost like your brother." The child would proudly reply, "He's my best friend," because Tomas was not just a dog, but a true friend who shared Keen's childhood, magnified his joys and eased his sorrows. One evening, as the sun was setting, Keen sat down on the swing in the garden. The colors in the sky had turned orange and pink, and a peaceful silence enveloped the surroundings. Tomas quietly came over and lay down at the child's feet. As Keen gazed at the sky, he thought to himself, "I may have many friends throughout my life, but none will be like Tomas. He is the most special friend in my heart." At that moment, the friendship between the dog and the child gained even more meaning. Because true friendship was based not on words, but on time spent together and the trust felt in the heart. And from that day on, whether inside the house or in the garden, in the rain or in the sun, Keen and Tomas were always side by side. The love they shared had become one of life's purest, strongest bonds. On the cold stone pavements of the streets, Nova, struggling to survive on her tiny paws, was just a few months old at the time. Hunger, cold, and loneliness were her only companions. Until Mary found her. When Mary first saw Nova, she felt her heart melt. She couldn't control her emotions when she saw that small, trembling body and those hopeful eyes. "Come here, little one," she whispered, picking Nova up in her arms. From that moment on, Nova's life changed completely. The house was like heaven for Nova. A warm bed, plenty of food, and most importantly, endless love. Mary paid him so much attention that Nova felt like the luckiest dog in the world. As soon as he heard Mary's voice in the morning, he would run over, wagging his tail wildly, and in the evening he would fall asleep in her lap. Over time, Nova had become the sole and indispensable prince of the house. Mary would play with him for hours, take him for walks in the park, and buy him his favorite toys. Nova had become so accustomed to this situation that he began to think of himself as the real owner of the house. Everything revolved around him. But one day Nova's world began to turn upside down. Mary's belly had started to grow, she was getting tired, and she couldn't pay as much attention to her as before. Nova noticed this but couldn't understand what was happening. She only knew that her beloved Mary wasn't paying as much attention to her as before, that she was spending less time with her. And then that day came. Baby Kayla was born. When Nova heard a baby crying in the house, she was completely shocked. What was that sound? Why was everyone rushing around because of it? When she approached the baby's room out of curiosity, the sight she saw broke her heart. Mary was caring for a tiny baby. All her love, all her attention was now directed toward that baby. The first few days were a complete nightmare for Nova. All the attention that used to be hers now went to Kayla. Mary no longer played with her for long periods, no longer showed her the same warmth. Nova sat quietly in corners, the jealousy and sadness inside her growing day by day. She doesn't love me anymore, Nova thought. This baby came and took everything from me. There was deep sadness in her eyes. Sometimes she would stand at Kayla's door and listen to what was going on inside. The lullabies Mary sang to the baby, the sweet whispers. These were the words that used to be spoken to her. As the days passed, Nova began to withdraw more and more. Sometimes she wouldn't even touch her food. Mary had noticed this, of course, but caring for a newborn baby was so difficult that she couldn't devote as much time to Nova as she used to. One evening, Nova was sitting in front of Kayla's room again. Inside, Mary was trying to put the baby to sleep. The baby was crying and Mary looked very tired. Nova noticed Mary's tears. Her beloved owner was crying. At that moment, something strange happened in Nova's heart. Was Mary unhappy because of this baby? That night, Nova fell into deep thought. Maybe this baby needed love and attention just like her. Maybe she should try to cheer Mary up, not make her sad. After all, Mary had given her life, rescued her from the streets. The next day, Nova gathered her courage and slowly approached Kayla's room. The baby was sleeping in her crib. Nova carefully examined the baby. How small and defenseless it was. Just like she had been on the street. At that moment, her heart softened. As the days passed, Nova began to observe Kayla more closely. She saw the baby smile and move its little hands. She even noticed that Kayla smiled at her when she looked at her once. This little person wasn't so bad after all. Over time, Nova became Kayla's protector. When the baby cried, she would run to Mary and tell her, and at night she would stand guard outside the baby's room. Mary had noticed this and had slowly begun to take Nova back into her arms and care for her again. "You're such a good big brother, Nova," Mary whispered one day, stroking Nova's head. "Do you know how much Kayla loves you?" These words warmed Nova's heart. Maybe things wouldn't be the same as before, but he could still be happy in this new situation. Now he was not only Mary's protector but Kayla's too. Months passed and Kayla began to grow. When she took her first steps, Nova was right there beside her. One of her first words was, "Nova." Hearing this, Nova wagged his tail so fast he almost flew. Now Nova and Kayla were inseparable. They played together, slept together, grew up together. While Nova protected Kayla from danger, Kayla gave Nova new moments of love every day. One evening, as the three sat in the garden, Mary stroked Nova's head. "I love you, Nova. You are the most important part of our family. Kayla's best friend, my most loyal companion." Nova looked at Mary's face, then at Kayla. The little girl kissed his nose and laughed. At that moment, Nova realized he hadn't lost anything after all. On the contrary, he had gained even more. Now he had two people to love and he received infinite love from both of them. Years passed and Nova and Kayla grew up. They were always together, always loving each other as best friends. When Nova thought of those cold days on the streets, she now smiled. Because those days were the beginning of the path that led her to these happy moments. And so Nova realized that the most beautiful gift of her life was actually Kayla. Because with her she had learned that love multiplies when shared, and happiness grows when divided.